Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in. This is Guest Talks, and I'm your host, Maggie from Thrive with Max. And today, my guest is Alice Wenzel, Intuitive Frequency Practitioner. Alice, welcome to Guest Talks. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Maggie. It's beautiful to be here with you.
Thank you. I am very excited about our conversation. Like we were just chatting, we are not 100% sure where it's going to go. It can go various directions, and that's what I love about bringing my guests and just seeing where the conversation takes us. But I always like to start with asking my guests about their big transformation. You are
Mm,
working with the spirit team right now, so you are very in the spiritual world and realms, but my guess is that wasn't always the case. So could you take us back to the moment where it all started, where it all changed? When was it? How was it? Tell me everything.
I will. I mean, it's a huge story, so I'll touch on it and, ask more questions and we can
Yeah.
expand on parts that you'd like to hear more about. But I basically grew up in Melbourne in a very mainstream family and in the school system and what you would call, I guess, a typical Australian life. And in my 20s, I started to party quite a little bit and go out and do, all the crazy stuff,
I know.
as, as most of us tend to do. And what was interesting that I was working in advertising and marketing at the time. So there was a big social and party scene in all of that as well. And I had just started to do a little bit of yoga, but I didn't really have a concept of spirituality, or I mean, that just was not even a word in my vocabulary. So then when I was 28, I realized that the partying lifestyle was not really serving me. And this is when I think that maybe there was like a higher message, a high frequency, let's say people might call the higher self, was coming through. And I think I was starting to get messages, but not realizing it, because suddenly I was like, okay, I need to stop doing that. It's not serving me. I'm losing weight. It's actually quite unhealthy way of being. And yeah, one night I was actually out at the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra with my parents, and we were sitting in the audience and we were listening, and they were about to start. And they had said to us, can everyone stay very, very quiet because they were recording that night's performance.
Mm.
So I was just sitting there, and then I think whoever, maybe it was a violin, they played the first note and this energy just came over me, and it was like it went up from the base up through the crown. I didn't even know what the crown chakra or the chakras was back then, and this energy just, yeah, it was like I was suddenly sitting there with this full heightened sense of awareness. All my senses were fully turned on, but really like times 10 times 100. And then what happened was it was kind of this feeling of divinity flowing through me, but my brain kicked in and the fear, and it said, I haven't taken any drugs. What is going on? Like,
I'm
it's not like
nodding.
I haven't taken any ecstasy. Why do I feel like I'm really high? And so then it was odd. It was like this this energy was like light was flowing through me, and probably what people would say kundalini awakening, spontaneous kundalini awakening. And then but my brain at the same time was fighting it and fighting the energy. So then I went into this sort of fear. And if people have experienced a spontaneous kundalini awakening or any sort of shakti activation or disturbance, it can be a very powerful force of energy, especially if you don't have a teacher and you don't have anyone to turn to ask about these things. And that's why now, after my experience, I do say to people, be very careful with the energy that you're playing with. And if you're wanting activations, or just make sure you do have a teacher or a mentor of sorts that can guide you, because it can be a very, very powerful energy.
Mhm.
So what happened for me was I was still functioning because I remember going to interval with my parents, and I was sort of in this heightened state, kind of like a deer in headlights, like just this like stunned, and everything, all the colors were brighter, all the sounds were lighter. My energy was like just through
Wow.
the roof. Yeah. And I held a normal conversation with them. I didn't want to say anything to them. But what happened from there, when I went home, this energy just never calmed down. So, because I didn't understand it and I didn't have someone to speak to, it sent me into constant sort of panic. And I started to become agoraphobic. I couldn't leave the house. And I spoke to my mother finally. We went to a doctor, just to a GP. He also didn't have an awareness or an understanding of a spiritual awakening or any of that. So I was put on antidepressants.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And in a way, I can see where there is a need at times for medication like that, because yeah, I didn't really had no understanding of what was going on, and I actually thought I was going to end up in a mental health, facility, because the energy just didn't by itself, and I didn't know how to work with it. So for me, the antidepressants sort of numbed that heightened awareness, so I could go back to work. I started functioning in the world, but I was also like, something doesn't feel right about this. And I had been to Byron Bay, where I now live, and I'd had a beautiful experience up there. And it is, some people would say it's probably the spiritual capital of Australia. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I ended up actually, I went overseas for a little bit. I was potentially going to go back and live overseas, but then I came back and I ended up moving up to Byron. I got myself off the antidepressants after about 4 months. I knew that something in that wasn't the way to go about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically, then what happened? I mean, it's taken years and years and years, and it's been, let's say a 30-year journey, and I'm still discovering more about this experience. Yeah, so it's a deep inquiry. There's a lot of energy comes through me. I have the ability to sort of shift dimensions and go into altered states. I mean, I'm always here and present, but my whole, yeah, sort of reality can shift in the energy that I'm working with, either when I'm with clients or if I'm working with the Akashic Records, let's say for myself, or light language. That's another form of energy healing that I do. And I also work with sound. So I do integral sound healing therapy, whether it's one-on-one clients or in groups.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a lot in there. So I might just pass it back to you in case you have any,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's been a
So
really massive journey.
exactly, and I'm pretty sure it didn't just you didn't just find it straight away. It was your own inquiry and your own
Yeah.
discovering. And what I'm curious about is how did you start accepting those gifts and getting comfortable with this energy and even realizing what it is? Because obviously, if you were put on antidepressants, then it was completely, you must have felt really lost. You must have felt like you don't really know what's happening. So that must have been very lonely and very confusing.
Yeah.
Um, I guess now there is a lot more people talking about it and a lot more people sharing their stories. So it's a bit easier, I suppose, for other people to recognize what can be happening to them. But so did you meet someone in Byron Bay initially that helped you understand what's happening? And what kind of steps did you take from there to start tapping into your gifts?
Yeah, well, even in terms if we're talking sort of like gifts and that intuitive sense that I have in working with frequency and energy, that really has only been in the last 2 years. So yeah, there's been still this long, long, long journey. I didn't come across a mentor until 2 years ago, because what happened was along my journey, I had all these different teachers. I was doing Chinese medicine, and then I'd have Reiki. And I actually ended up, when I was 31, I was in Thailand. I did a detox retreat and I was doing the whole detox thing. And then I went to Bali to do another detox and actually met my husband to be, or my now ex-husband, is Balinese. And so then I sort of immersed myself in the whole Balinese Hindu culture. I was married Hindu and all of that. So that was a big part of my spiritual journey. And my husband, what back then was a part of energy healing. And actually, when we got married, we also had a spiritual kind of energy wedding too. And I was actually initiated into this Balinese energy healing work. But what's really interesting is I kind of, because we had a son together and my whole life came about raising my son, even that aspect of myself, I sort of just popped over there for a little while. And that is only just coming back in the last year, that specific type of healing work that I can do. And I actually want to go back to Bali and work with that at a deeper level.
Okay.
So what happened was basically after Bali, and then my son and I came back to Australia when I divorced from my ex-husband, and then we would just go back to Bali, and I would immerse myself back in that culture and somewhere where I just felt very at home because they
Mm-hmm.
work with, energy and the gods and the spirit
Yeah.
world. And yeah, so that was a big part of my initiation. And then what happened in 2020, I went to a women's circle, and there was someone there who was reading the Akashic Records. And that was the first time that I ever heard about that. And I was really called to it. And I had a conversation with her, and she gave me a book to read. And I literally think it was called, Learn How to Read the Akashic Records.
Yeah.
And I thought, wonderful. I'm just going to sit and, you read the book, and then there's a prayer that you say, there's a meditation. So I started doing that. It actually must have been January 2022, it was. So only 3 years ago. And I sat every morning in meditation just for 30 minutes. I did the meditation, I did the opening prayer, and I got to day 5, and nothing was really happening. I just felt sort of very at peace. But I wasn't getting any messages or any signs or and then on this 5th day, I just was sitting there and I looked at the iPad that I was reading the prayer off, and I thought, okay, I've been sitting here for 25 minutes. I'll
Mhm.
just sit for another 5 minutes. And then I just closed my eyes. And again, this energy, but this time it was like 10 times even stronger than what had happened the,
Years before.
yeah, 30, no, 20 years previously. And it
Mm.
started to come over me, and I was like, whoa. And I was like, oh no. And then the fear, because I thought, am I going to have a psychotic episode? It was so strong and so powerful. And I was like, and I got the iPad because when you open the Akashic Records, there's an opening prayer and a closing prayer. So I got the iPad, I'm reading the closing prayer. And as I'm reading it, this white light just came straight through my crown and overtook me, and I couldn't see. I went completely blind with white light. So again, I still didn't really have an understanding of what I was working with and even what had happened 30 years previously, even though I'd seen all these different healers and practitioners and done all these workshops and started my sound healing journey and all of it. I was just, yeah. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, okay, I need to just ground myself. So I fumbled down the stairs and I got outside onto the grass. And I literally was blind. All I could see was white light and this
Mhm.
intensity of energy just going through my body. And I just threw myself down on the grass, and I was just like, the Akashic Records are now closed. The Akashic Records are now closed. And I was like,
Found me.
please, like, let me come back into my body. I'm not ready. And
Wow.
yeah, so what happened was just being on the earth and grounding myself. The energy just started to dissipate, and I think my prayer or my calls were heard, and
Mm.
the energy just dissipated and left my body, and I was back in my body, and I was like, oh, I'm okay, I'm here, I'm going to be okay. And then I felt my clothes that I had on, and they were wet with sweat. Like so much heat was radiating out of my body. And I was just like, whoa. And at the time, I had a job, and we were on holiday. So I didn't have to go back to work for, I think, another 5 days. So I had this period as well that I could integrate,
Mm.
because what had happened since the first sort of awakening or Kundalini energy, whatever we want to call it, um, that energy would come and go constantly at the most random times. And very often in the middle of the night, it would wake me up and I'd be like, whoa, okay. But the fear would kick in, I'd go into panic. And then I would just breathe through it. And then I would learn sort of different techniques. Qigong actually was one of the modalities that I learned, which is very slow movement with the breath. That helped me very much at the time in the intensity of it. And it just helped, I guess, shift my nervous system from fight, flight into restore and rest. So Qigong was one of the ways, working with the breath, that did help me shift out of that sort of panic state. And then the energy again would just sort of dissipate. So what happened on this last time with the white light? And,
Yeah, after
and
you
then I was
grounded
like,
yourself.
yeah, I was like, okay, I've survived. I can, yeah. And then what happened was I was like, right, I'm not going back into the Akashic Records. I don't know what I'm working with until I find a mentor. And
Mm.
it was about 6 months later, I was working for a retreat business, just doing admin work for them. And also, I was managing the podcast.
Mm.
And yeah, on the podcast, they had an Akashic record reading, a beautiful woman, Heather. And I booked in a session with her. And just so much revealed through the session with her.
Mm.
And then what happened was, I then she 6 months later, we ended up doing an Akashic record training, and I was in the training, and that's how I
Yes.
became an Akashic record
Okay.
practitioner. Yes, and now had that support, and then from there, I just started calling in people who understood actually what I was working with.
Yes. So maybe let's talk about the importance of having someone to guide
Oh,
you. And I think it's not just for the energy work. I think it's for any sort of transformation that you're undergoing and you feel lost. I mean, with energy, I feel like it's even on another level because you literally like your body is changing and you're not sure what's happening. But even in
yeah,
my case, when technically I haven't had any like energy shifts like you, it's still there's a lot of this limiting beliefs that pop up. There's like all these other things that are popping up when you're trying to become like this completely different person and show up differently. And it's just so much harder to navigate those challenges when you put everything like obviously it is your responsibility to overcome those things, but you don't have to do it yourself. So can you tell us a little bit more about, so how did you go about even finding a mentor? Did you have any challenges with working with a mentor, or once you found someone, it was actually much easier and safer to
yeah,
tap into
yeah.
your gifts?
Yeah, sure. And, back then, because I'm obviously a bit older than you, so even the whole coaching, um, you know, what do you call it, business,
Industry, yeah.
wasn't really industry, wasn't even really a big thing. Like we're talking, yeah, 30 years, no, 20 years ago.
20
Yeah,
years, yeah.
yeah, 20 years ago. Yeah, I'm not that old.
You're making yourself older. Like it's only 20, Alice. It's only 20
20
years.
20 years ago. I know, me and time, everything just has shifted
Yeah.
so much.
Doesn't
Anyway.
exist anyway, right?
Yeah. So what it used to be was, practitioners. That's who I used to go and
Mm.
see, and they used to become my teachers and mentors and guides. And whether I was having body work or Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and then slowly, slowly, I guess, I'm trying to think, I got called to doing sound healing first. And my sound healing teacher, who's in this area as well, she then became a mentor and guide. And we didn't really talk about my sort of kundalini or spiritual awakening experiences, but we start talking about frequency and energy because, of course, when we're working with
Yeah.
sound, we're
Mm.
working with vibration and frequency. And so with integral sound healing, it's that idea of intention plus frequency equals healing. So I started studying, yeah, in 2022 in around June. So that started becoming a part of my world. And that was a beautiful guidance, but I was still, yeah, this bigger energy that I was working with. It was through watching podcasts. And
Mm.
then I came across Heather through that podcast. And then she was such a beautiful soul, and I helped her organize her training because she's actually in Canada. So she works in the US time zone. So I helped her actually organize a training to have it in Australian time zone.
Oh,
And then
beautiful.
yeah, became a part of that training. So
Mm,
that was really the first to have her. And she sort of just sort of took me under her wing. And that was the first real experience of sort of just having someone there that I could call upon. And then also, I guess you would say in the training, we were a group. So I had her sort of in the sidelines one on one, which was beautiful. But I also had the group container. So that was probably the first experience that I had of both one on one and a group
mhm.
container. And you can see, and even now I'm in a group container with another coach who I did my light language training with, and also someone that I'm going into business with, and I'm doing one-on-one coaching with her. And they have a different flavor to them, and I find them both just as beneficial, but just with a different, when you've got the one-on-one, I guess you can probably go deeper, you would say.
Yes.
But with the group container, it's beautiful because you see everyone going through their transformation and their growth and their challenges. So to have that as well. So, and I mean, I wonder if you'd agree with this, but most
Mhm.
coaches that I know of have more than one coach.
Yes, if I don't have a mentor, I feel lost right now. Like I remember it's funny because a few years ago before I had my first mentor and I had this fear of even investing money and I started with one-on-one, apart from the certifications that I was doing, which were obviously in a group, in a larger group. I went to one-on-one because I still had the fear of showing myself and showing
Yeah.
because I was healing my trauma or pretending I'm healing. I wasn't really fully into it yet, trying to powering through more. So there was fear of being seen and vulnerable around other people. But as soon as I started more of a group coaching, I noticed immediately how healing it is to be in a community of people that are on a similar journey. And it's not necessarily has to be exactly the same thing that they're doing, but just a growth journey, just a journey of trying to understand yourself better, your wounds, or the gifts that you're discovering, where what you can do with them. And it's such a beautiful part of connection and connecting with others that once I discovered it, I was like, wow, why did I close myself? I mean, I know why, trauma, but
Yes,
I didn't know
yeah,
at the time, right? So I was like, such
yeah,
a, and to be fair, that was part of my thing that I had to forgive and I had to kind of work through as well. That that just was part of my this hyper independency that a lot of us wear is the result of trauma, is the result of, look, I don't want to be hurt even more. So I'm just going to power through everything that is the most hurtful by myself. And then once you start opening up, it does so much to your on a soul level and on a healing level that it's like I didn't really have the words at the beginning, but it's profound. It's profound. And now I like to have a one-on-one coach and I like to have belong to some sort of a community that
yeah,
is on the similar, and I do different things because I do. So like currently I'm more into looking for a mentor that is more into can connect me with the spiritual side, because that's something that I've done a lot of the coaching, the how to coach, the limiting belief, the mindset, but now I am doing it. Now I'm the one that can help with it. So I don't really need the support as much with that side of my journey. I want to evolve into something that I don't know as much yet. So I think intuitively we know what we really want. The problem sometimes is, are we brave enough to ask for it and actually state it? For me to say I want help with spirituality, that is not, I'm getting chills a little bit now,
yeah,
something
beautiful.
that I wouldn't be able to say out loud last year because I was still in fear of seeing myself as someone with psychic abilities or someone that can tap to those gifts. So, if you don't mind, I would love to ask you, because this is something that is very close to my heart, and this is something that you help others with as well. So, I would love for you to speak to people like me that still not certain, like I still have this voice, even though I did Akashic Records. So I can to the
Yeah,
audience that we did an Akashic Records, and we were laughing because yes, I have been made aware of for the last 6 months, if not more, that I am already an open channel, but there is still here it's like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not getting messages. I'm not. And like, the goosebumps, I'll be like, no, it's the fan. It's the
yeah,
fan that is doing it, and I would like immediately just block this
yeah,
acceptance of I am a channel as well. So
yeah.
can you speak a little bit more to the psychic abilities? Do we all have them? How can we tap into them? And most of all, how can we stop telling ourselves that we're not tapped in when we are? That's
Yeah.
a question for me, please.
Yeah, well, definitely, because I mean, I had such a mainstream upbringing, so that even
Yeah.
all those words you've just used were not a part of my vocabulary.
Yeah.
And so, why don't I share with you how it all sort of unfolded that I do have these, these gifts, abilities, whatever you
Yes,
want to call
please.
them.
Yes.
So, I mean, I knew obviously we've discussed this big energy coming through and light and frequency. And so I think that's why I was probably called to the Akashic Records and then to do the training because I had that whole big experience with the white light. And then what happened for me in the training, and Heather, my teacher, knew this about me, and she knew I would just go out very quickly. I didn't even have a term for that at the time, but she said, make sure you have a bucket of ice water to put your feet in when we do the training. Because with the Akashic Records, all it is we're just shifting to a higher dimension, which is a higher frequency, higher amount of light coming through. And this is where we can tap into the higher self. Now, I'm getting, see, now I get the goosebumps. So I'm getting all the goosebumps now that we're talking them, which is it's clairsentience when you get goosebumps or you get feelings when, you're speaking the truth or messages are coming through, or if you're doing a reading for someone else and I get the goosebumps.
Yes.
So clairsentience. So, yeah,
So bucket with ice water.
the bucket of ice water. So, yes, to stay grounded in entering into these higher realms and frequencies. So now it's interesting, now that we're talking about it, I'm actually starting to shift. So my conscious brain is actually starting to not function as well. So I'm just going to share that with you.
Share whatever's coming through, please, please.
Yeah, because
It's what we gotta hear.
and you might have to bring me back on track because yes, that's just happening at
Okay.
this moment. So I'm
Okay.
just letting you know we're already going into a higher uh,
Okay.
dimension as we're speaking, because often when I do talk about it,
You're getting.
the energy comes through and I just open to it. So I have got my feet on the ground. I don't have my ice water. I don't tend to need that anymore. But what happened was, yeah, I did the training and it was just like, whoa, it's just entering into, yeah, high vibration, the spirit self, the higher self. And then within that realm is the whole spirit world, spirit team, guides. And, we're all psychic. We all have this ability. For me, how I operate in the world now, it's like we are all divine beings having a temporary human experience.
Yes.
So, it's all energy, it's all frequency. And I mean, you would know too, as we start sort of cleaning up our lives and doing healthier habits and tapping into different, say, modalities and practitioners, we're raising our vibration and we're raising our frequency. So, what happened with the Akashic Records? And I had a teacher, I had a mentor and a guide, a coach, whatever we want to call Heather. And I could ask all the questions and just learn so much more about what I was actually, yeah, working with. And so what happened for me from the Akashic Records, and we all started to do it for ourselves and we'll go into our own records. Then we was a 3-part training. Then we learned how to read for other people. And then part 3 was learning to read for your business, for your home, to do like clearings of houses, of land, that you can
Mhm.
go into like planets, to go into galactic beings, all that is available. But when I was doing sound healing, and I started to realize that my voice really I wanted to start sort of speaking and singing. And I had a conversation with Heather, And she said, oh, it sounds like light language is wanting to come through you. And so I didn't even really, I'd heard that term, but I wasn't really aware of what that was. So this is what's interesting about my path. And I think the path for many is it's quite innocent. It's not like I was asking for it. I wasn't searching for it. And it just started to naturally appear and organically unfold. So
Mm.
I just went onto YouTube and I started looking up light language. What is this? Da, da, da. So once I then had this a mental, I guess, understanding of it. And Heather said to me, just sit in meditation, maybe with your crystal bowls, because that's the main tool that I work with. It seems to open portals and all the weird and wonderful stuff that happens. And I did that, and this energy just started coming through me. And then my hands were moving. And then I was like, oh, this is actually now reminding me of the energy healing of Bali that I was into when I married my Balinese husband. So I thought, wow, this is all wild. And it used to happen when I used to go and sit in kirtan. Do you know kirtan music with
Mhm.
call and response? My hands would always want to start moving, and I was like, okay. So then I thought, okay, this is light language. And then it just happened that a friend was going to a 1 day free event on the Gold Coast. It was a woman, Natalie, that does light language and light codes and all this sort of stuff. So off I went, and I was just fully activated and my light language was going off. So I decided to do her training. So that organically just unfolded as well. And I had this incredible support around me. And that's the first time with Natalie, she has coaching. So I went, because it was the light language, I went into that group coaching. And then since then, there's a new wellbeing centre here in Mullumbimby, Little Mullumbimby, where I live. And there's some beautiful people and practitioners working there. And then it's now that I've come into working with a beautiful couple, Melanie and Jeremy, and they do sound and breath and soma. And I'm working alongside them to support them in their business and growing their business. And Melanie is my coach. So she's who I do the one-on-one coaching. Now, what I want to say is just for the audience, in terms of just trusting,
Mhm.
listening, and start listening to intuition, because we all have it. And it's just, it's quieting the mind, coming into the heart center. And when we get those little hits of knowing or understanding, or there's something, just follow that. So what happened for me was I was sitting in, they do tea ceremony. So Melanie serves tea and Jeremy does sound alchemy, very, very powerful. And I was sitting in tea and Jeremy started doing like voice and sound alchemy, and
Mhm.
something, again, I was more used to it. So I didn't kind of
Yeah.
lose the
Panic as
plot.
much.
I could still drink my tea, but I was like getting these transmissions and activations, and I was just like, whoa, what is going on? And after the session, I went straight to him and I said, do you do vocal coaching? Because I wanted to learn to use my voice more, especially with the light language and the sound in my sound healing. And he said, well, actually, I do. So I booked in 3 sessions with him. So again, he became a voice coach for me. And then we got to know each other. And then Melanie and I got to know each other. And it was literally from listening to this voice came in and said, you need to speak to Jeremy and ask if he does vocal coaching. And then since then, I'm now working alongside them, and Melanie's become a coach. So,
I think it's,
yeah,
yeah, I think it's important to, yeah, listen to those things even if they don't make sense. Like,
100%.
because we know those things in hindsight. It's easier to be like when we trace back, it's like, oh yeah, because I did this, so then that happened. But sometimes at the time of it happening, you could have easily not listened to that voice and ignore it. And one of the things that I have followed that at the time didn't make sense is writing my book. It came to me in on a hospital bed after my knee surgery, and it was this knowing, right? Because it was a knowing that I have written a book. This book already exists and it's out there, and at the time I had zero spiritual connection to anything. I didn't know about the knowing in a knowing, but I was on morphine, so I accepted it, and I was like, yeah, I'm high, it's okay, this is a great idea. I'm going to write a book because I'm going to be stuck in bed, unable to walk, so let's go with it. So I took it on, but I mean, I'm laughing at it like that way, but I think there was something inside of me, and the morphine just allowed me to trust it
To
and not reject
be
it
open
and
to
not
it.
reject it immediately because logically it made no sense. If I started asking questions, what do you mean you wrote a book? Like you haven't, you don't even know how to write. I needed to do all the things, but then my job then was to immediately find a writing coach, immediately started to learn how to do creative writing. And then that writing has led to me healing, discovering what I need to heal. Then that led to me coaching, that led to me being here. Like if I haven't listened to that in the hospital bed, I wouldn't be doing all of those things that I'm doing now. So it's even scary to think like, what if I didn't go with it? I mean, hopefully it would come back and return and like, but you don't know. So I think it's like an invitation that sometimes we have to let go of the logic. To me, it's a big thing. And I think anything with
100%.
psychic
Yeah.
abilities, because we also have so much, um, like you said, we were brought up in the mainstream, most of us, where, we maybe like, I loved horror movies and I definitely read all the ghost stories. So it's not like I've never believed in it, but it was definitely not like, I can have those abilities because there was still a lot of different things attached to how I perceive the psychics and what it means to be a psychic. And, so it's again about unlearning, realizing how do you define someone that is psychic? What does that mean to you? What are the limiting beliefs around thinking that someone is psychic? What does woo-woo mean to you? Because we drop those words, but we don't really think about what they mean to us. And I think once we start with like gaining clarity on what sort of world do you want to live in? Like so to me now it's like a little easier. I'm kind of coming out of my spiritual closet, right? And I'm like, actually,
Yeah.
I love doing cards. And I'm like, with the oracle cards, I think that's one of the practices that we can do to connect with the spirit team. At least that's for now, it's probably the only one that I'm accepting fully. And I'm like, yes, okay, I'm getting those messages.
Yeah. That's
Yes,
beautiful.
it's that we gotta start somewhere.
It's baby steps,
Baby steps, exactly. So I think it's is
The
there
other
any
thing,
other, yeah,
yeah, I was just going to add to that. It's baby steps. And then it's also like if you want to get bigger muscles, you go to the gym and you
yeah,
practice and you
yeah,
do reps. And it's exactly the same thing. It's
yes,
just start. And whether it's going to be, whether you're psychic or be doing Akashic Records or channeling, or even if you just for yourself, want, support of the spirit team, messages from your higher self. It's just sitting and practicing and just starting to trust. And it might even just start with those little intuitive hits like you got
yeah,
about your book,
yeah,
and then the more we trust and the more we practice listening and then acting on that intuition, the easier it becomes. So yes, it does take a little bit of courage to start with. And courage is definitely, it's like letting go of all the fear and all the conditioning, stepping into that courage. And that's why coaches, I'll just say this as well,
yeah,
is incredible to have because there's someone there holding you accountable,
yes.
which is
Holding you accountable and also like validating those fears
and
and
yeah,
validating your
yeah,
experience
yeah,
because a lot of us just invalidate our feelings and we're like, well, I shouldn't be scared here or I shouldn't be doing this. And we like, we're very judgmental of ourselves and critical of ourselves.
100%.
Yeah, so coaches mostly like will be there. Like I loved working with my mentor because like he was just like I even so many times was like, why does he believe in me so much? Like I haven't done anything yet, like I'm like questioning his
Yeah,
belief in me. And I was like, what is he doing?
yeah.
Like why is he so supportive? You
And do
know?
you know what it is? Because they see you as a fellow
Yeah,
human
they
being.
see that potential, and I see it in others as well. So like I have no
Yeah,
problem seeing that in other people, but when it came to me, when it was the other way around, and I was still
100%.
fearful of doing those things, and yeah, I would have never done the things. I would never quit my job had I not invested in working with my mentor, and even working with a coach can be triggering. I think
Yeah. Oh
a lot of
gosh,
people
yes.
don't talk about that either, that it can be
Yeah.
a lot of wounds and a lot of like whatever it is that you need to go through, we
Yeah.
can be the mirror to hold that for you, and that's all in your highest good, right? That's all pops up so that you can, because where we're going and wherever it is where we're going, our job is to always evolve, and that's how we break those cycles. That's why we clear those generational traumas. That's why we start living in with different, with coming back to love as well, is when we shed all that negative stuff, all the past hurts, all that, and that kind of pops up when you evolve, when you're trying to do things that you haven't done before. And yeah, it's a very fascinating journey. And I just would like to say as well, with the psychic things, because like I personally still don't think that this is something that I will be coaching people on. So
Yeah.
maybe you can speak to the because but I would 100% know that this is part of me and part of my journey to tap into this thing, and whether or not I will then use it in my coaching, that's just something I've decided to not worry myself about at this
Yeah.
very moment, because that would just become overwhelming at this stage. If I wanted
Yeah.
to already go ahead of the time and think about how I can, upgrade my offerings to the abilities that I will gain, I don't know when,
Yeah.
then it's just, we have to be in here, in the present moment, in acceptance of what we already have before we go too much ahead in the future. So it's like, so do you have any maybe advice to the people that are still discovering how to um, not be overwhelmed by this desire to already tap in, because
Yeah.
like I feel that it's there, I know that it's there, but I don't
Yes.
have it yet. So sometimes I just leave it and I don't look
Yes.
at it, because
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that is too much, because I'm upset that I'm not tapped in yet, and then I come and I have a session with you or someone else and we already tapped in like 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
to me, it's a little annoying, because then it's this comparison. It's this, well, can I ever reach that state? So how can we be more patient with ourselves when
Yeah.
we still developing those skills?
Do you know what, for me, and it's interesting, maybe this is why you've called me on to have
Mhm.
the podcast today, because you can see from my story how organically it has unfolded.
Yeah,
So, and I'm just getting a yes for you now. It's like, just trust the timing,
yeah.
because the call, I'm getting big goosebumps now that I'm saying
Mhm.
the call is already there for you, but you don't need to overwhelm yourself and you actually don't need to do anything.
Mm.
Just know that it's there. And when the time is right, you'll either meet someone or something will happen and then it'll drop in. And then you might be doing a training, or you might be,
Yeah.
someone might be helping you work with your clear abilities.
Mhm.
So there was something else that just came through as well. Oh, yeah. So this is just like a message that's coming through. And it feels like this year, what we're moving into, sorry, it's just strong. I'm just going to do a bit of light
Yeah, yeah,
language.
you go for it.
Sorry. Yeah, it's a strong message coming through. Is So stepping into 2025, and what I'm feeling for my work is it's actually to empower others to be able to tap into their gifts for themselves. So, what is happening for me, even in my work? Yes, I do Akashic record readings for others, but I've actually more started shifting to training people to read the records for themselves, because this is where the power is for us to realize that we have the connection ourselves,
Mhm.
we have the answers within. We don't need to go outside of ourselves for the answers. That being said, life, the whole journey and the spiritual journey and the gifts unfolding, it is a step by step. I can't tell you how many practitioners
Yeah.
I have seen
Yeah, me as well by now.
along,
Oh, like I would
along the way,
doing
and the
different
coaches
things.
and the support, all of that for like hands down has been so, so, so important. And
Mm,
within all of that, I have this, and it's Jeremy and Melanie, who I'm working with as well. Their business is called Ahana, which is Sanskrit for the inner light. And it's
mm,
tuning everyone back in to that light that is within. And how do people access that for themselves?
mm.
So I can feel even within my work, like I love doing my sound healing therapy. It's beautiful. You know, we have a conversation, we set intentions, we do the sound, but I'm the practitioner. I'm starting to feel like, and I feel this is going to happen with, I guess, as you know, we're waking up as a group in
Yes.
consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and more people, you know, are able to access things like the Akashic Records, their psychic abilities, way
Yeah.
more than how it used to be. So I feel like mentors, teachers, guides, practitioners,
Mm,
many are starting to say, let me show you how to access it for yourself.
mm,
And that's what I feel in this, 2025, we're stepping into. And I feel that that's the way my work is going as well, is
mm.
empowering others
It's
and holding. So at the moment I do, it's a 21-day training.
mm-hmm.
I do like about an hour, hour and a half session once a week, so 3 sessions. And then I also hold that space for 21 days, and I'm available because I would say that everyone, if you're say learning to read your Akashic records, to sit every day, just to because it's such a high frequency that you're working with, it actually takes time to adjust. So even if you just start with 5 minutes and then you build that time, and then you're connecting with your spirit team, the higher self, messages, you know, start to come in. And what happens in the Akashic records, which you've seen what happens to me, I sort of go into this like whoop, and then the
Mm,
light language wants to come through, and I'm sort of speaking from a higher
yes.
frequency, I guess you would say. And it's this, you go into this sort of altered state of expansion and spaciousness, and these like clear messages just come through. And depending on what your clair abilities are, like there's clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentient, claircognizance, where you just get this like absolute knowing about
Yeah,
something.
that like my book. I think that was the
Yes, yeah, claircognizance.
yeah.
Other people have, you know, the visuals. They might see pictures or little videos. Other people get messages. So I seem to stream messages,
Mm,
nearly like my own thoughts, but it's not my thoughts. It's very different. It's just such a clear, direct message that you can't even question it. You know, it's like that clear knowing, and then you get the, you know, all the goosebumps.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like the allow just supporting people to have that ability themselves, and then hold them in a container for 21 days. That, you know, when I did it and I didn't have that, and I had that like blowout,
Yeah.
the amount
Yeah.
of energy just to have someone, and I can actually sit in their Akashic records with them while they're doing the training, so I can hold that frequency and, you know, also help ground them and all the things, and teach them how to speak to the spirit guides, and who do you want to call in, and who's here with you, and yeah,
Okay, that's beautiful. Well, we're
yeah,
definitely going to link in the description of the video to that offering. And yeah, that just speaks to how we very often end up creating offerings that we need.
yeah.
You know, I'm actually going to be launching a group coaching
Oh,
in
beautiful.
February, and that's the challenge that I'm doing now on YouTube. Is
Oh, great.
yeah, which is that's I think another knowing that I had, or another nudge that I had, that I listened. And I think even though I'm still so stubborn and I use those words that I don't want to be using, and I'm coaching myself through it, but I just something, something was in me like, go and do that, like go on YouTube, because I was meant to do like a 21-day challenge on Instagram, but I'm like, Instagram is not, this is not where my biggest stretch is. My biggest stretch is YouTube. And now that I've started, I'm like day 9 or day 10 today when we're recording this. I'm already getting so many. ideas. And
Like
I think one
download.
of those things, exactly, I don't call them downloads because they kind of feel like my thoughts, but
Yeah.
I know deep down, I know this is all creation. This is all co-creation. This is not just me. This is aligned, and because I intended as well. So you spoke earlier to the power of intention.
Yes.
I strongly believe it that, so I went into this challenge with an intention of creating something. I'm going there because there's something, I'm going to get something out of it, not external, but internal. And I think every creation, anything that we put out there, we want to have this higher intention as well of, yes, it will serve us as well in a way, and ideally it serves others as well, but we don't want to be attached to this. And sometimes it's very important that we go in even without knowing what we're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when I usually realize, that's when the most magic happens, is because I did trust and I did take that first step and another, even when I was like impatient or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, so like, yeah. And the group coaching that you said when you were saying 2025 is about tapping into our thing. This is exactly
Yeah.
what I want to have my group coaching about, is this authentic self-expression and
Yeah.
actually finding creative ways of tapping into who you are and what you want to put out there, because so many containers that I have been is claiming that, we teach you how to be yourself, but really they still try to put you in a box and follow their formula or follow someone. And so many times I had in the coaching industry to name my methods and have this thing, and I'm like, I don't want to do this because I'm doing what is coming through. I don't want to put a name to it, label it, it's Maggie's method, thrive or whatever, because still I'm just guiding you. This is just the guidance. And I want everyone to literally tweak it, whatever they want, because we all have very intelligent, the body is intelligent, the mind is intelligent, and then you have your own story with it. So, and I'm sure even with the Akashic Records, you can teach me, but what I'm going to do with it, how I'm going to use it, what's going to come through is going to be different to what you have. So I think us as
Yeah.
coaches, healers, practitioners, guides, it's important that we allow that space for the mentee to just still be themselves, rather than what happens in a lot of in the coaching industry, that we like, this is the formula, this is the 5 steps or 10 steps, go and do that and you're going to be successful. Like, I don't believe in this. Yes, sometimes it's some foundation, but you don't want to be following someone else's thing, because then you use your own path, right? You use the
100%.
authenticity
Yeah.
and the
Yeah, and that's what I love about you is, as soon as we met, just your like vibrancy,
mm,
there's like a potency to you as well, and that individual, and just like you are just you from what I've seen of you, and from the
oh, thank
interactions
you.
that we've had. And to me, it's beautiful to witness, and just really stepping into what you're here to do and supporting others who aren't fully in their haven't stepped into their full potential. And while we're journeying into that, to have support like I didn't have 20
Yeah.
years ago, that I now have, is like life changing, absolutely life changing. And it yeah, of course it's challenging, and our teachers, mentors, guides, practitioners will challenge us, but that's where the growth comes from, and they also hold your hand along the way. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think it's very
Support.
important. Yeah, yeah, all of this. I think there's going to be a lot of changes as well in 2025, and
Yeah.
it's going to be very cool to witness. But I think for us, it's just important to take care of us and be on our own journeys, instead of worrying about, what other people are doing and
Yeah.
following whatever trend, or looking into, oh, this is going to be, I think sometimes we lose track of our own thing because there's a trendy, shiny thing, or people are talking, go there, because this is going to be trendy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no, just always return to what your soul is telling you,
Yeah.
because this
Yeah.
is where your path lies. And this is yeah, I think it's important to tap into your own wisdom, right?
Yeah. And I was just going to say on that, it's like this deep listening, And I think, you and I talked about this. It's like we can be so busy, our minds, and we're out there and we're doing, doing, doing. So it's just taking that time to stop,
Mm.
to create space, because that's actually when we can listen deeper to our inner knowing. So that's maybe my little tip, my takeaway
Yeah.
tip is to, and I think we said this even in your session, is like just start to create a little bit of time, a little bit of space where you can just, hand on heart and even just breathe into your heart and be fully present in that moment, and just allow guidance to come through and
Yeah.
just to listen more deeply.
I would love to also say a little, because even when you were saying with the light language and the arms coming in, and I was thinking, oh, that actually happens to me through music. Part of
Ah, yes.
part of me, my message that I'm finally allowing myself to spread out there is how movement changed my life, how it not only helped me heal, but helped me tap into this authentic self-expression, which usually is blocked because of our traumas, because of the unprocessed head that we carry in our bodies. We just, we don't allow our bodies to move. But once we shed that shame and all those things, this is, I think, so what I'm trying to get to is that I think sometimes movement, because like for people like me that are, not always going to be able to sit still for 5 minutes, that could be a challenge. I mean, I
Yeah.
had to with my leg, but now it's better. So now I'm back in my, oh,
Yeah.
let's go for a walk and do stuff. So even like walking. So I do a lot of movement, like, yeah, walking on the beach, but just not grabbing my headphones. So I'm not listening to any podcasts. I'm just staring at the sea, listening to the waves, making like, paying attention to how my feet touch the sand. And
Yeah.
so we can be present in, like, ideally, I get it. We want to be still as well. But I think, do you think we can still connect just via, connecting with the nature and not necessarily, yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah. 100% nature. And also because you've got that grounding, like your
yeah,
feet on the earth, or being, in the forest by the ocean. It's like there's a different frequency,
yeah,
And even if you're, dancing and moving, it's like spirit can still come
yeah.
through. You don't have to be sitting
I'm
dead
literally,
still
that's
in
what I'm thinking.
meditation, It'll be different for everyone.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that have worked for me is also even journaling or writing. I know that some of my writing is definitely co-creation, because then it's just like I think any activity that gets us in a flow, in a zone, when you don't think about it, time, you're just there, and then all of a sudden 5 hours. So for someone
Yeah,
is painting, for someone is singing, for someone is creating music, we all have different things that just take us away from the reality, from the logic, from worrying, so
yeah.
anything like that, I think that's where we should be tapping into and doing more of. So the more and I think also it's not just one thing, because I do it in writing. I find it in writing. I find it in dancing. I find it in walks, and I try to do more meditation as well, because sometimes there's a lot of, or even yoga for me.
Yeah,
I have in
yeah,
here a very good teacher that kind of implements breath work as well, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm tapped in. Like I feel,
yeah.
so there's like, it's not just the stillness. I think it's in
Oh,
discovering what gives us the flow. And I think that's when we are tapped in with the higher self, or
yeah,
with the source, or with
yeah.
whether we then say it's not true. That's our individual journeys. I won't make it about me.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. Like meditation can happen anywhere, anytime. It's the quietening of the
Yes,
mind.
it's
Like
just here. So this quiet. So you're
being here,
like,
like full
whatever,
presence.
whenever you notice that, oh, actually, I didn't worry about whatever it is that you were worrying the whole day. It just disappeared. That's it. That's the activity
Yeah,
that you want to be doing more of.
yeah.
Because yeah, that's what,
And
you're
it is,
supposed to do.
it's full presence in the moment. And
Yes.
that would be through dance, through singing, through
Yeah.
writing, through painting, through sitting in a stillness meditation,
Mm,
yeah. And that's where that spaciousness and that expansion
mm.
happens. Yeah.
Beautiful. So I just want to ask you one more question before we wrap up. With your offerings, maybe you can speak to who's your dream client? What sort of people do you love working with? Or what's your offerings? Who are they most created for? You know,
Yeah, yeah,
I have
definitely.
our dream client, we call it in the coaching industry.
Yeah, yeah. Is
That
it
will
what is it? Our
most,
avatar?
yeah, your avatar.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I just love working with people in general, but I've always felt my journey has been so intense energetically. Like if I
Mhm.
can support other people who are going
Okay.
through that and don't have someone yeah, to speak to or to be with, and just to have that support,
Mm,
that just, because that's been my experience and I didn't have that. So
yeah.
to be that to others, I guess you could call it in the awakening
Yes.
process, whether they're having a spiritual awakening, a Kundalini activation, or just this transformation and leaving an old part of themselves behind and stepping into something new. And I do work with, like, in person with the sound. I haven't set up to do sound healing online, so I am in
Okay.
Mullumbimby near Byron Bay. So
Okay.
if people love sound and frequency, then I do in-person sessions. But online, I can do, yeah, the Akashic Record sessions for
Which I
people.
recommend. I did that. I did that. It
Thank
was
you,
really
Maggie. And then
beautiful.
I do that now, the 21-day training to train people to open the records for themselves. If
Okay.
people are here, I can do sound healing and Akashic Records. That's like a pretty big session. It's like a 2, 3 hour session.
Mm,
But I'll give you the link. Like, everything's on Calendly
okay.
there. And even like light language sessions I can do on Zoom or I can do in person. What happens with me, because I'm working with frequency, like you just saw before, if the energy comes through, light language it's usually just a part of my sessions anyway. But I do
Mm-hmm.
that just as light language sessions as well for energy healing. But yeah, like you'll have the link to my website. And I
Yes,
did want
I
to
do.
offer to anyone who watches this podcast that I'm offering a 20% off as
Oh,
well of
thank
any
you.
of the sessions, including the 21-day training
Oh, that's beautiful.
for
That's
your people that
beautiful.
watch.
So the links that we will share will ha already have the discount, or is there like a code that they should be using?
I haven't even set up.
Okay, so we
I'm
will
so
explain in the
I'm old
description. It's
school.
okay. It's okay. We will get there. We will get there. All
I'm
the
still
description, guys. That's
I'm
okay.
still doing like bank transfer. I have set up Stripe though, so people can
Yeah.
send
Oh,
an
yeah, yeah,
invoice
yeah.
and do Stripe.
That's okay.
I'm still a
That's
bit old
okay.
school,
But
but
that's very kind of you.
there's a
Thank you so
20%
much.
discount on any of the prices that you see on
Okay. Okay.
on
So
my
the price
calendar.
that is in the Calendly minus 20%. So
Yeah,
that's very generous.
yeah.
Where can they find you? Well, apart from the website, are you active on social media? Is there any place that is the best to contact you if someone would like to send you a message and ask you more questions before they book a session? What's the best place?
Yeah, so look, even on my website, on the contact page, I think my phone number's even there. There's an email. I'm on
Okay.
Facebook, I'm on Instagram.
Okay. So
Um,
wherever is convenient for the,
Yeah, and very happy, especially for the bigger sessions, with that sort of investment. I'm very happy to have a chat with someone on the phone,
yeah.
and we can make sure it suits, what they're wanting
Yeah,
out of.
we had a beautiful chat before I did
Yeah,
records. So I highly recommend asking questions because, yeah, you really held space for me when I had millions of questions before
yeah,
we.
yeah. That was beautiful. I felt like we covered so much already, and it's like, oh, what are we going to talk about now in the actual session?
Oh, this never stops. So don't worry. I always have a lot to talk about on any session, whoever supports me.
Yeah, oh, it was
Um,
beautiful. I loved it. And then I loved dropping into the records for you, and yeah,
mm.
everything that came through was magical.
Yeah, it was really, really, really beautiful. All right, Alice, I think we can wrap this up on this note. And oh, is there any final message that you would have for any people that were tuning in today?
I think we covered it already when it just came through so strongly for me. It was just that, like, just, yeah, create some space and listen and reach out for support, so that especially if you're in transition and shifting from, here to there, and you can see where you're going, but yeah, reach out to, obviously, to Maggie. I'm available as well. And that has been for me to find that, especially when you're talking about gifts and energy and, all these unknowns,
Mm.
just to have that support, but that coming back to the self, knowing that we do have all the answers within and that deep trust. Yeah, yeah. And start listening and start speaking to your
I love
spirit.
that. Yeah, I love that.
Okay,
Yeah,
spirit
I do,
guides.
I do, I do.
Okay,
Even
spirit
then,
team.
immediately after I negate my, deny my powers, but we're getting better.
Yeah, yeah,
Better. I love because it's very aligned with my message and what I've been tuning into myself as well. That it's first and foremost, it's taking care of you and tapping into what are you here to do, and then kind of everything else will fall into place. Instead of usually we
yeah,
look for what offering do I need to bring, what the audience needs, it's like no, it's you will figure this out here.
yeah,
What
yeah.
needs to be done out
And
there?
yeah, you will be guided, If we
Yeah.
stop and listen, we are just like that session with, that sound came through with Jeremy, and I was just like, whoa, okay. And
Mm,
then the next part of my life has unfolded, from
yeah.
just listening, the trust, and the little bit of courage.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the courage. I think I even created one of the videos. It's yeah, the courage doesn't come before the action. You take the action, and then the more you take the action, the more confidence you gather,
Yeah,
the more or you just, move with the fear. You learn that the fear is just there to kind of, I think even fear points us in the right direction because usually
yeah,
we go exactly where we're meant to be going. There's going to be resistance, there's going to be fear.
yeah,
On a soul level, we know that this is exactly where I'm
yeah.
going to
And the
be.
ego is what is
Yeah.
resisting it.
Yes.
But the
Yes.
soul is calling, and then it's like, oh, yep,
Yeah.
okay, let's
Yeah.
go.
And the ego is it's its job to be like, no, don't go there. This is perceived as danger. So it will try to stop you and keep you here.
Exactly.
But you're gonna have that pull, and I think, yeah, if guys, if I can tap into this, then you can as well.
Yeah.
Because trust me, I've been very stubborn and it's still an
And
ongoing.
me too, from
Yeah.
my upbringing, 100%. I'd
I think
never,
people should talk about it a
never,
little bit more because every time I meet someone that is already kind of like tapped in, they just make it so, easy that it's just been a journey. It just happened and now I'm this and that. And I'm like, did it like really? You just accepted those gifts like that? And no challenges there? Like that just doesn't sound
yeah. It took
real to
me
me.
20 years, but I
Yeah,
didn't have the support. So
yeah,
imagine with the support, how much
yeah,
quicker it can just,
yeah,
all drop in for the
yeah.
person.
I think that's for everything. It's same with like, skills in here, like the more grounded stuff. It's just once you allow yourself, I think even part of our evolution is to just allow ourselves to be guided and
Yeah.
supported and not see it as something bad about us, that yeah, like ask yourself, why do you resist the support? Like, what is the story that you're telling yourself that you cannot get that? Because, maybe you're telling yourself that if you have the support, then that means something bad about you. But in this industry, it's just like a wise move, right? You know that they will accelerate your power and your journey, and wherever you're going, you will tap into this much faster. And not to mention, it's going to be a much more pleasant journey because you're not in this
100%.
all
Yeah.
alone. And that's where the fun is, when you can share this beautiful journey with someone else and
Yeah. And that's the thing, make it fun. Yeah.
yes, I'm all
Because it
about
can
bringing more
feel
joy.
very heavy.
So,
So
yeah,
let's make it fun and do it together.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's finish with that message. I think that's a great message.
Yeah.
Let's have fun and just, take over the world and make humanity better and all that. All right, Alice, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Maggie. It's been so beautiful. So thank you for inviting me on. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. See you next time.